It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue, again, in Council Bluffs. You know, I was just driving over in that area earlier this week for Bike Night, Classic Car Night, and I thought, boy, how nice it is that they finally got this road put back together. Do you remember that last year about this time, that water main broke, and they went to go fix it, and they realized it had been broke for a long time, and it created this giant cavity underneath the ground.
Oh, yeah, they brought in a lot of dirt. I do remember.
It went from being a 1 week, one lane closed project to the road was closed for pretty much all of summer. The good news is that road is completely open. In fact, most of that area is completely open, barring the interstate construction that's still going on. But it's still easy to get over to Joe's Karting, and what a great little entertainment district that you can take advantage of. Dinner and racing stuff at Quaker Steak and Lube. You can head over to Joe's Karting and do a little bit of racing there, and then go and watch Cars 3 or go watch one of your favorite movies that are in theater over at the AMC.
I don't know, with the way the weather's getting, I like going back over on the other side of the interstate by Maristar and watching those guys fly those remote control planes.
Yeah, that is kind of fun.
Because you could sit there with a six-pack and take care of that.
joeskarting.com, as always, karting with a K. Get over there today, find out more information about everything that Joe's Karting offers. All right, today's show, in turn number 1, we're going to talk about the race that was at Pocono. In turn number 2, we will sit down with Ed Carpenter, driver of the number 20 Ed Carpenter IndyCar car. Is that right? IndyCar vehicle, IndyCar machine? Is that the proper terminology?
IndyCar series car.
Okay, there we go. We're going to talk to Ed about going over to Iowa Speedway for the IndyCar Iowa Corn 300 coming up July 9th. One of my favorite races. I love making that race, and hopefully I can make it over this year. I've got plans to, but we'll see how that goes.
And it was his team car that won last year. So
dominated. I mean, that was ridiculous. It was Martin Truex Jr.-esque at the Coca-Cola 600 last year. That's how strong Joseph Newgarden was in that Ed Carpenter machine last year. So hopefully they can carry that success. We joke with him a little bit when we were talking to him about it. Hopefully not that much success, but hopefully they can find success. But we'll talk to Ed in turn number 2 because that's a nice change of pace for us.
Two-time Indy winner, and where did he run the 11th this year?
Pole winner, right? Indy pole winner?
Okay, yeah.
I don't think he won
right.
Yeah. He hasn't had the fortune
he hasn't
to
drank the milk yet.
He's finished really well, though. He's been top 10 a couple of times, top 15 several more times. Very good driver. And
10th or 11th this year, if I remember right.
I think 11th, yep.
11th.
So we'll talk to him in turn number 2. Turn number 3, we will recap the World of Outlaws that were at Eagle Raceway on Tuesday nights. And then turn number 4, we will preview today's race, the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan. All that today. I believe it's on Fox starting at about 2 o'clock.
And just a note on the World Outlaws with Kyle Larson coming in and, jumping in the car and winning the race. Mm-hmm. Did you see all the stuff about the NASCAR stars need to stay out of the little guys series? They just cherry pick and come take the little guys' money.
Was there really people complaining about that?
Absolutely.
I didn't see any of that.
It was ridiculous.
You know what? I saw about 30% more people in the stands that night because they announced that Kyle Larson was coming out that day. Yeah. And in this guy's opinion, I think Kyle Larson saved that race because with the weather that was forecasted, with the heat, I think we'd have had about a half house, about 3,500 seats or tickets sold. I think because Kyle Larson was announced that he was going to be there, it helped sell another 1,500 to 2,000, which I think helped push the race over to actually be profitable. By the way, it's amazing how much it costs to put that race on at Eagle Raceway for SLS Promotions. And by the way, we appreciate the support they send us.
Well, with that big purse they've got to put out for to get those guys there. They had a nice field of cars. They had a full field, which is great.
32 410s. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what it ended up. A couple of local guys came over. But I wish they would have gone ahead and advertised, or I wish Ricky would have let it known that he was going to show up too.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have brought a few more people into the buying pit passes to get some autographs and stuff.
Yeah, and I'd heard rumblings of it for a while that it was going to happen, but I was told under no uncertain circumstances was I able to talk about it. So I had to sit on this, and I think you and I talked about it. I had to sit on it for a couple of days. and just sit there and look at it and say, poor Roger, he needs to sell tickets. Poor SLS, they need to sell tickets.
Well,
pit passes, fans could have come out and met him, but as it goes, they don't want to announce it and then something change and then they not be there. Kyle was planned to be there, but until that morning, it wasn't fully official that he was actually going to be able to make it. So, yeah, it ended up turning out he was able to be there. And the circumstances, I'm still getting that details correct, but it sounds like it wasn't the best of circumstances of why he was there. Maybe next weekend we'll be able to talk about it more if something does end up happening. But, but the circumstances of why he was there, unfortunate. We'll have to figure that out if anything's ever officially announced. But, boy, what a great race. And what a talent. I mean, you can't deny the guy's talented.
Well, like I said, we got to watch him last year come out of the B at Knoxville and run in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
He was the only guy that really did anything. The guys that finished up front all started up there except him.
And anybody that complains, Kyle Larson, cries like you were talking about, that those NASCAR guys coming down and cherry picking, go pound sand, please, because Kyle Larson puts plenty of money into that World of Outlaws with his Marks Larson organization. And by the way, it was a Marks Larson car that he made the last lap pass to beat. So racing his buddy's backup car, he beat his own car for the victory lane. And he joked about it in victory lane. But, Larson puts plenty of money into this dirt track thing. You can come race with us anytime you want to.
Well, absolutely. I mean, any of these guys that are supporting, you've got, as much as we're on this show, not huge Kyle Busch fans. Mm-hmm. And by the way, his sponsor, Mars, ended up picking up the M&M's truck race over at Iowa next weekend, which is going to be great. We're going to be there.
I'm excited to find out if there's going to be caramel M&Ms in the media center.
My guess is there'll be some somewhere there. There'll be a big bowl full of M&Ms somewhere.
There'll be a lot less when we get there.
But Kyle Busch puts a lot of money back in with his sports,
Mm-hmm.
with his truck teams and stuff. And I mean, he had the Busch teams for a while, which Joe Gibbs and him kind of molded
merged
into one unit.
Right.
But Brad Keselowski's putting a lot of money back in with his true truck teams and developing young drivers, and running afoul of NASCAR on a regular basis. Poor Chase Briscoe got lug nuts again this week in Texas, or this past weekend in Texas. So he's not in a real good place right now with NASCAR. But I wholeheartedly stand behind those guys for giving back to the sport.
Yeah. Thank you. And they're bridging the gap. And if racing is ever going to get back to, if NASCAR is ever going to get back to where it is in the 90s, I think it needs dirt track's help. And I think if dirt track is ever going to get to that next level to where we see it regularly broadcast on TV, it needs NASCAR's help. The two sports can work well together. I think that some of the things that dirt track does won't translate up into NASCAR, and what NASCAR does doesn't translate down into dirt track. But there are things the two can come together and work well together. And I mean, after all, like we all talked about, like everybody's always mentioned, NASCAR got its start on the sand and the dirt tracks. And that's still where it is today with developing this younger talent.
Well, they need to get back. I mean, they've run the trucks now for several years at Eldora, that Mud Summer Classic, and they need to start here in the next couple of years, or they're going to miss the boat if they don't get an Xfinity race either at Eldora or somewhere like that. You keep hearing all this stuff about the having the safer barriers completely around the track and having I know I started hearing it back in like 2004 about having an infield care center at the facility. Mm-hmm. Well, the facilities we were racing at back then had mobile care centers, but they were there and they were at the track.
Yeah.
NASCAR Cup Series runs at tracks that do not have safer barriers completely around the track, such as Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Well, yeah, and there's also certain circumstances. The very first interview we did on this show was with Dr. Dean Sicking, who was the guy who helped invent the safer barrier walls.
Correct, out of Lincoln.
And we talked to him about why, if safer barriers would work on the dirt track level, and he said absolutely not. There's a certain speed you have to achieve for those safer barriers to become effective. If you don't achieve that speed on a constant basis, then they actually become more detrimental than a retaining wall does. So it's, to put barriers around these, some places in Indiana, the actual speedway, is that what you're talking about, the actual 2.5 mile track?
Correct. It doesn't have the barrier all the way around it.
That absolutely should have it.
Exactly.
You're completely right.
Inside and outside.
Yeah.
I mean, they've proven these inside of these tracks need them as much as the outside do it at various places, Daytona with Kyle Busch's crash, etc., California with Denny Hamlin's crash a few years ago.
Yep.
It's been proven. These high-speed tracks need them both inside and outside. Indianapolis is definitely one, and I'd never paid any attention before until the Indianapolis 500 that track does not have them around, on every inch of the speedway, and it needs to.
And a lot, like you just mentioned, a lot of tracks don't. There's certain spots at Kansas that still aren't covered because the tracks say, well, it costs $1 million for every 25 feet or something. I can't remember what the exact number is, but it is ridiculous. But you found it. Laws of numbers tell us you leave a 1 foot section uncovered with safer barrier, somebody's going to find it and somebody's going to get hurt. Let's cover the race that was at Pocono last weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series,
where nobody got hurt, but a couple guys tried.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm still fighting off a cold from about a month and a half ago. Great race. I was really happy with this race. I thought the competition was up there, and there was a lot of changing for the lead. And
the last 15
laps
laps was amazing.
Yeah,
all there is to it.
I did love seeing Kyle Busch lose that lead. Not because, well, yes, it was because it was Ryan Blaney. I wanted to see a first-timer win, but because I'm still a little bitter with his mic drop and crybaby attitude in the media center a couple of weeks ago.
Well, and he got passed by enough people that he didn't have to drop the mic this time.
Yeah, he fell way back. Ended up finishing 9th after leading the most laps, which, by the way, I heard an interesting stat this week. Only 3 races this year has the person that has led the most laps actually went on to win the race.
And it's probably, it's got to be pretty close to the same for pole winners, too.
Yeah.
There's just been a couple pole winners that won the race, and, he happened to be the pole winner, and he happened to lead the most laps, and not having his crew chief come back and bid him.
Yeah,
so
this is, that absolutely a strategy call is what bid him, but, when you're the leader in that situation where you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm sure if he'd have come, there would have been a couple of guys that stayed out where it would have been tough for him to get back to the front in time.
I figure if he would have come in, probably 2nd through 5th or 6th would have stayed out.
Yeah.
And just as Ryan Blaney proved and Kevin Harvick proved, they were further back than 6th or 7th place when they restarted, and they walked right through the field.
No, Blaney started right behind him.
I thought Blaney was back about 6th.
No, Blaney Again, we're matching your memory to mine, but I'm pretty sure Blaney started in the 2nd or 3rd row.
Well, 3rd row, it would have been 6th if he was outside. That's where I'm thinking he was. But either way, I think Kyle Busch's car was cut above everybody when he had fresh tires.
He was the better car, yeah.
I think if he would have started in the top 10, he'd have won the race with 15 laps to go. I really do.
It would have been tough to see. And what a tough call for that new crew chief to make, too. But either way, it ended up not panning out for him. The way the race ended up finishing, what a great couple of laps, though. So I want to talk about this. Dale Earnhardt Jr. shifts, tries to go for 4th, ends up throwing it in 2nd, blows the motor, blows the transmission.
In practice and in the race.
Right. Happened twice. And then Kevin Harvick did the exact same thing. But somehow that Ford engine stayed together. And I the whole time the Fox guys, to their credit, are saying that there's no way that engine can hold together.
Well, they also kept saying it doesn't sound bad. We don't hear anything.
Yeah.
And Darrell kept saying, well, if it's a valve spring, it'll show up later. No, a valve spring shows up right away. When it's broken, you hear it. It's definitely right there.
I don't know if you noticed, but anything Darrell Waltrip says, he thinks it is absolutely right. And he will repeat it
10 or 12 times.
Yeah.
But I think Harvick may have reacted quicker than what Junior did. Because you hear the quick rev, and then you hear it go away.
Yeah.
So I think he popped the clutch and got the clutch in, quick enough that, nothing got hurt. Well, obviously nothing got hurt because he finished the race.
Yeah, what a lucky one. And what a great battle between him and Blaney. After Blaney was able to wrestle the lead away from Kyle Busch. Did you find any issues with the way Kyle was racing him?
Absolutely not. All I know is if I would have been Blaney, I'd have dumped him on the front chute when he came over. They touched.
Yeah.
He did.
I'd have dumped him too, but I think Blaney, obviously he did the right thing by letting it go. But, I think I'd have kept my nose in there and dumped him. But then you run the risk of being collected in it also.
Exactly. And that's why I thought Harvick was doing. I thought Harvick was just going to shadow him and didn't want to give him the chance to catch a draft and come back by him. So I just figured the way he ran around behind him there for the last 3 or 4 laps, I figured on the last lap he was going to go by him.
Yeah.
But he couldn't.
Yeah.
And he might have been trying that whole time, but I didn't think he was.
Great move. I had a problem with the way Kyle raced him, but this is really weird to say. I didn't like the way Kyle raced him because he drove him down the track. He pinched him in the corners. He did all these different things. But then I got thinking about it later, and I'm like, but that's what you've got to do. I mean, Kyle's holding on to try to win this thing for everything he's worth. And again, I give credit to Kyle. He didn't give it up. He didn't move over. He made him earn it. And by gum, Ryan earned it.
And it might have been a different deal if there was 30 laps to go.
Yeah.
When they're racing at 12 and 10 laps to go, I mean, you're fighting for every inch at that point.
Kyle knew the stakes, and we saw exactly what he knew. As soon as he got behind in that dirty air, he went back pretty quickly. He started losing spots fast. So then it set us up for Blaney Harvick battle, and there's a few guys I think that are left in the field. You look in your rearview mirror and you go, oh, dang it, he's behind me. If it was somebody like Jimmy Johnson, he's not going to push you into the corner. He's not going to rough you up. But if it's Kevin Harvick, he'll nose you.
Brad,
if it's Brad Keselowski,
Joey,
he'll know. Yep, yeah. Those guys will know that he knows it'll happen.
all his brother Ford drivers.
He knows what's coming. But he's got Harvick behind him, and what a great job. He made a couple of mistakes. Harvick was able to get to him, but just not close enough to really affect him. And Ryan was able to run off with the win, a well-deserved, completely earned win. I think once again we have a first-time winner that didn't back into anything. They earned it.
Yeah, not fuel mileage or anything. Anybody that heard our interview from Kansas with John Wood, we talked about, how close are you guys? And he said, well, we've got a poll here in Kansas. That's our first poll, so we're still a little bit away. I think they were closer than what he thought.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the comment that he made. He said it was going to be his last post on Sunday. It was in the evening, and he posted their pilot, the pilot that was flying their charter jet, name of Champion. They fly with him quite a bit. Mm-hmm. When he got out on the runway with other planes raiding, he did 2 donuts in the Learjet. 2 donuts in the Learjet on the runway with everybody else watching.
That's funny.
Before they flew back. Oh, it's hilarious.
Because Blaney never did one.
Nope.
He never did anything like that.
It was a very nice celebration, though. I mean, he might have been a little overwhelmed, and he was taking care of the equipment.
Well, and we're going to go ahead and go a little bit long in this turn, but I've heard him say it before. I was sitting at Kansas, or maybe it was Iowa, listening to the radio of the Truck Series guy that won. And the owner comes over the radio and says, congratulations, man, you deserve it. Don't you dare do a burnout and hurt that engine. We need it in a couple of weeks. Oh. And I think this is the same case. They had a really good engine. I don't know what they're going to do with that engine, if they'll tear it down, rebuild it, if they're going to sell it to somebody. What's going to happen with that engine?
Well, I guarantee it was torn completely apart. The rods came off the crank. Everything was weighed for a first-time win like that, even though those engines all come out of the Roush Yates shop, But it was completely taken apart, and some of the parts will be reused. I think they'll use a block several times. They'll use a crank once or twice. Rods are pretty much disposable anymore, just because they practice with them too, and by the time you've got 100 laps of practice plus the 160 laps. At Pocono, they probably had 50 laps of practice, but you go to a smaller track.
They didn't have much at Pocono. I think 1 and 2 practices. But that's my point. Absolutely said he took care of his equipment because that's what he does. So Blaney gets the win. Harvick comes home second. Eric Jones third, Kurt Busch fourth, and Brad Keselowski rounds out your top 5.
And Eric Jones was up front all day long. He led another good run by him.
Twice for 20 laps. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, and Matt Kenseth round out the top 10. Your stage winners, Kyle Busch won stage number 1. Kyle Larson won stage number 2. Your point winner on the day was Kevin Harvick with 51 points. So, good day for Kevin, and good day for Ryan Blaney getting his first win. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We're going to talk with Ed Carpenter of Ed Carpenter Racing to get you set for the IndyCar Series Iowa Corn 300 at Iowa Speedway coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the show. Heading into turn number 2, and it's time to change up series. You know, we cover a lot of dirt track racing and NASCAR racing and a little bit of straight track racing with the NHRA, and it's kind of time to start to point our focus towards the Indy cars. That little race, the Indianapolis 500, is behind them. Now they can start focusing on the big race, the Iowa Corn Indy 300 at Iowa Speedway. And joining us on the phone to help kind of preview that race is car owner and driver Ed Carpenter. Ed, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. How exciting is it to finally get to come back to Iowa?
I mean, it actually is very exciting. You know, the Iowa Corn 300 is one of my favorite races each and every year. I don't know that I'll honestly tell you it ranks over the Indy 500, but it's up there as one of my favorites for sure. It's a really fun track to race at. I think Indy cars are amazing to drive there and to watch. The speeds that we get around the 7/8 mile oval there are impressive, and it's really just a fun track to visit each and every year, and presents us with a ton of challenges as drivers and teams.
Someday we're going to find a way to make the Iowa Corn race a little bit bigger than the Indianapolis 500, but we got a long ways to go. a lot of tradition.
One can always hope, and for all of our sakes, that would be a good thing as long as it doesn't totally surpass Indy.
We'll skip the milk at the end.
Yeah.
How's that?
Well, we can do like corn on the cob.
That's what
There
I was
we go.
thinking. Can we get you some nice boiled corn on the cob? Do you prefer grilled? I mean, what can we do for Victory Lane celebration?
Grilled corn is good. Boiled is good. However, we actually had some corn last night at the house with the kids. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
That it is.
I love that sweet corn time of the year, and that's right in the middle of it. You talked about with Iowa Speedway and the speeds and the shortness of the track, yet it's still fast speeds. But one of the things that you guys really have to deal with a lot is the character of the track and a lot of the bumps.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges. I've been around since the track was new, and way back then it was super smooth and still really fast, but as it's aged, it's gotten more character. There's been some bumps, and some bumps that used to be there are gone, and every year there's maybe a new one that pops up. But I think that's part of what I enjoy about it is the challenge that creates, not only for the driver but for getting the car to work properly. And when you can get it right, it's super rewarding. We got it right as a team last year and had really good cars, and Joseph won driving one of our cars, so it's a really fun track to drive. I've also had cars that didn't work so well, and it can be not so fun in that case, but it's really rewarding racetrack when you get it right, because it is very challenging. It's
interesting. From my specter, I used to be on the official side of things with NASCAR, and talking to a man. I mean, we interview a lot of drivers, and more NASCAR as opposed to the IndyCar, the open wheel stuff. But
we can work on that.
Yeah. Oh, we do. We do our best. We don't discriminate, that's for sure. We'll talk to anybody, anywhere. But drivers all like the bumps. I mean, you obviously don't want whoop-de-doos like a motocross track, but to a man, the drivers don't like it when a track gets ground and they make it smooth again. You like the challenge, it sounds like.
It does. It's an opportunity to be better. When a track is bumpy and has some character, as we say, it really creates an opportunity to get an advantage on someone else, or if you can just get more comfortable with the bump. The big bump that used to be in 1 and 2 got ground down, but when that was kind of like a jump, a lot of guys just couldn't get comfortable with it. And if you could get your car to where you were good with it and comfortable, you could make a lot of time and have a big advantage. So I look at tracks like Iowa as an opportunity to be able to make more of a difference as a driver, and getting the setup right relative to a place that's really smooth and has high grip, it makes everyone better. So it's for sure one of the challenges and things that makes me enjoy the Iowa Speedway that much more.
You talked about earlier that your team hit on a really nice setup, and Joseph Newgarden was able to get the win. Could you do me a favor and not hit on such a good setup this year?
Well, we'll do our best to be just as strong, but hopefully there's some people to race. He had everyone covered pretty handily last year, but we'll see what we can do.
I know it's your job to make the race a little less interesting for us and go out there and whoop everybody, but I always appreciate it as an analyst and a fan of the sport if you're not quite that good.
Well, it definitely, races like that can make it a little less interesting, but at the same time, for a team, it's so rewarding when you nail a setup like that and go out and execute all around, from Joseph last year to the team in the pits, the group of engineers getting the car that awesome. It's really rewarding from our standpoint, but I do understand what you're saying, that it can make the ending a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, well, Dan's only been around the sport a half dozen years. I've been around it for like 55 years. I'm got some age on me, and I'm trying to teach him that there's a lot of racing, between 3rd and 10th place, and when the leaders get into lap traffic. We're going to be at a World Outlaws sprint car race tonight on a 1/3 mile dirt oval, and they'll be in lap traffic in about 5 laps. And to me, that's some of the best racing, is watch a leader pick his way through that. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like last year, I thought the racing was really good. There was a lot going on. There just wasn't much going on at the front because Joseph had everyone covered. But you're right. I think that's one of the cool things about IndyCar racing right now, is that the field is so talented and deep, and all the teams are strong, that you really, going into each event, even though we were dominant there last year, if we don't do our work, we could easily be outside of the top 10. It's very hard, and there's good racing throughout the pack. So you just keep working on them and show them what to watch for.
How much can you carry over what you guys learned last year to this year? Does Iowa Speedway change that much that you've got to come in with a new setup, or do the cars, does the aerodynamics, does a lot change to where you guys have to change the setup a lot, or can you carry some of it over from last year?
Well, from our standpoint this year, there's been no changes to the cars or rules, so theoretically, we should have a good starting point, obviously, with the car from last year. The real variable is how the track has changed, if any. That's one of the things with Iowa, and other tracks in the Midwest that go through a winter and spring and, ground moving, the track can change a little bit. There might be a new bump or a new dynamic that changes the way the car works. So, we'll actually be coming to test there following our race next weekend in Road America. So that'll be one of the things that we're looking for, is to see, how relevant our car from last year still is, and hopefully it is. But if not, that test day will be an opportunity for us to zero in on what it's going to take to be successful this year.
Well, and then you've also got Mother Nature. If it's 100 degrees, obviously a different racetrack than if it's 80 degrees or 75.
Yeah, for sure, especially now that we're back to a day race with the Iowa Corn 300. The weather can play a big factor in it, not just the sun and temperature, but also the wind. The wind really affects our cars quite a lot, so that could totally change from how things were last year as well. But those are all things that we look at and try to compensate for. But I'm excited to get back to Iowa, and really July 9th at the Iowa Corn 300, that'll be my next race in the car myself. So I'm looking forward to it, and that's what I'm focused on right now.
We hear some of these drivers, I know we got to let you go here shortly. I just want to get one last question in real quick, probably one last, maybe more. We hear some of the NASCAR drivers and some dirt track drivers do simulator testing. Do you guys have that ability in Verizon in the IndyCar series?
Yeah, it's definitely the way things are going. There's more and more simulators popping up that we utilize, and it's a valuable tool to get ready, not only as drivers but also for the teams. We're developing setups in the cars through the simulator now, especially going into test days, to kind of zero in on what we want to work on or where we think we can get better. So it's the way of the future. It's a more cost-effective way than just going and testing at the track, at least to get your test list refined a little bit.
I was wondering if you could be the god of racing for a day and you could change one thing about the sport, whether it be from a promotion aspect, from the racer's aspect, from the owner's aspect, dome a track, tires that never wear out, or answers we've got from other people, what would be the one thing that you would change about the sport?
I mean, it's a really hard question. Obviously, been asked that before. I think IndyCar does a really good job across the board. With the competition side. But if we're playing that role in that question, I think the one thing that I would like to see with our formula is getting back to maybe a little bit bigger engine, creating some more power. Just to add that dynamic back into the sport. But for the most part, I think the product that we have is phenomenal and puts on exciting racing, and that's the most important part.
Just to let you know, we interviewed Dave Despain last summer at Knoxville before the sprint car race over there, and he said that he thought every racer should have an ATM with no cap on it.
That's a good answer, too. I should have thought of that.
As a car owner, would you enjoy that part?
It would definitely make things a little easier and far less stressful, that's for sure.
Ed Carpenter of Ed Carpenter Racing. You can see him at the Verizon IndyCar Iowa Corn 300 on July 9th. Green flag set to wave just a little bit after 4 p.m. Central Time. You're going to be in the number 20 car, right?
That's correct.
All right, man. We can't wait to see you up front for that race, and good luck to you, bud.
Thanks, guys.
I've talked about it 100 times on this show and in private and in public. That IndyCar race is my favorite race at Iowa Speedway. I mean, I know I'm a NASCAR fan, and that's, I'm an apologetic guy for NASCAR a lot of the times. The Xfinity Series is good if a Cup Series guy doesn't show up and stink up the show. Truck Series race is usually pretty good there. Barring last year's IndyCar race, I have never been disappointed with the IndyCar Series coming to Iowa Speedway. It is so stinking fast, and it's absolutely amazing to watch that race. Again, barring last year's race, take that one out of the record books because Joseph Newgarden just had the field licked. They put on such a great race, and it was so much fun to watch.
Like I said, once you learn to watch back into the field a little bit, a race like that can even be enjoyable. I mean, that's how Kansas has been the last couple of years. We've had to watch, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th type battles, because there's been somebody checking out on the front. But it's still good racing. That
happens everywhere. You sit at a Friday night dirt track and you watch the race and you're like, oh, geez, this is you can look at it and say, the leader's got a 2-second lead. This race stinks. But if you actually open your eyes, and like you said, go back and look for the battles, that's where the interesting thing is on the track. And quite frankly, that's what makes going to the races much more worth it rather than sitting and watching it on TV.
And letting somebody else decide what you watch.
Right.
And the local races where the flavor comes in is you go to the weekly race, the fast guy's starting 12th. He's not starting on the front. Man, the local races would just shut down if they started the fast guy on the front every week because the races would be so terribly boring.
Yeah. It's that there was some good battles last year during the IndyCar Series race, but it was really amazing to me to watch just how fast Joseph was and how smooth he made his way through the field. I mean, it was really just a thing of art, and I hope for the sake of being able to watch just a little bit different of a race, I hope it's a little bit different this year, but I hope that kind of good luck for Ed Carpenter. And again, you can see him on July 9th at Iowa Speedway for the Verizon IndyCar Series race, the Iowa Corn 300.
It's a short drive over there. It's right next to the interstate. I mean, you can day trip this whole deal. Head over there, take your tailgating supplies, leave in the morning, do a little tailgating, take it easy on the beverage if you're just day tripping it, and watch the race. And it's a couple-hour drive back. And like I said, it is right on the interstate. They do a good job getting traffic out of there.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing to go see.
You just described my day, by the way. We're live that Sunday morning following the Saturday night Kentucky race for NASCAR. So we'll be live that Sunday morning, and then we wrap up the show at 9 o'clock. I head over, grab some breakfast, and then we go over to Iowa Speedway, get there at about 1 o'clock. That gives us 3 hours of pre-race to enjoy. We usually get a hotel room that night because it does get a little bit late, and with being up late Saturday night for the NASCAR race, up early Sunday morning to do the show, makes for a long trip back from Iowa Iowa Speedway. So we just take Monday off and kind of enjoy the long weekend. And my girlfriend and I love going over for the Iowa Corn 300. 11th, I think it's the 10th year the race is going to be at Iowa Speedway, and it's the 11th year that Iowa Corn is involved with Iowa Speedway. So make sure you get over there and enjoy that race. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. 866-787-8946 or go to iowaspeedway.com. We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turns 3 and 4, and we'll wrap this baby up. We'll be back.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
This week's Young Gun is 19-year-old Missile Matt Schaff, driver of the number 95 Bills Built B-Mod. Matthew is following in the footsteps of his grandfather, Dennis Schaff, who drove a race car for nearly 25 years. Matthew started his racing career at the age of 8 in cage karts before moving up to sport compacts for 2 years, where he won Rookie of the Year at I-80 Speedway and the UNOH Youth Achievement Award. At the age of 17, Matt moved into a B-Mod, where he has competed for the last 3 seasons. He currently attends the University of Nebraska in Lincoln as he majors in environmental studies. Matthew's racing goals are to keep improving and to win-win-win. He owes special recognition to his dad, his Uncle Donnie, Grandma and Grandpa, Buzz Wilson, Hank, and of course his fiancée, Hannah. Without their support, you wouldn't be able to see the number 95 Bills Built B-Mod at a dirt track near you. This week's Young Gun is brought to you by Craig Kelly at Insera Kelly and Sewell Personal Injury Attorneys. Find them online at insera.com.
For almost 70 years, Insera Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 3, and it's time to talk about the World of Outlaws. Craftsman World of Outlaws Series made their way to Eagle Raceway on Tuesday night, and I counted my lucky stars after that race was over with that we were able to get it all in because, boy, it sure didn't look good for quite a while there. In fact, it sure didn't look good until I finally left the race, and I was like, okay, we're good.
If it rains while I'm driving home, we're all good.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it did. I got rained on the way home. I don't know if rain ever fell at Eagle that night because it just went to the north. There was a little bit to the south. It went all over the place.
Well, it looked like it pretty much stayed interstate north for the most part. I don't know.
And that's it's kind of what I saw and what I felt too. But what a lucky night. It looked like it was going to rain. All for the couple of days leading up to it, there was 60-70% chance of showers. Then it started moving out. Percentage just started dropping. The hours of when the rain was going to start started to move back, and I was sitting in the booth with Stan and Tom and the officials for the World of Outlaws sitting in the announcer's booth at Eagle Raceway, and I had my laptop pulled up with taking notes on what I was seeing and what the racing action was doing. I had a radar going and another screen. And the World of Outlaw guys were kind of looking over my shoulder, and they were talking, and they're like, "Well, what do you think? You're from this area." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist, and if I was, I don't think it'd help." I mean, so
I'm from Iowa too.
They ended up making the call to move everything up because obviously people pay to see the World of Outlaws, and the 305s were an added value to the race, just a support class, and so they wanted to make sure that their race got in above all else. So originally it was planned that it would bounce back and forth. World of Outlaws races, then 305 races, World of Outlaw races, 305 races. That would give the World of Outlaw guys times to make adjustments, make changes, get ready, and then vice versa. And smart plans, what 100 dirt tracks have always done. And then all of a sudden they made the call and they said, nope, we're moving everything World of Outlaws from here on out until to avoid any possible weather. And so they made that call for, they ran the last chance qualifier and and then I think they went right into the A feature. So it was about 50 minutes straight of World of Outlaws stuff. But what a great race! I mean, I was thoroughly impressed with the action, the way the cars were able to get through the corners, the speeds. I was kind of hoping that Johnny would call it right and we'd get a sub 11-second record, but we were still about 4/10 off. I think the fastest lap I saw was about 11.4.
Well, the weather. I mean, when you've got that thunderstorm type stuff rolling in, and weather was roughly 90 degrees.
Humid.
Well, yeah, the humid's the thunderstorm stuff.
Yeah.
When the weather's that humid, a fuel injection car isn't, going to make a ton of horsepower. Even though, I mean, they're tuning them and everything else, but it's just not conducive. If the humidity would have been down in the 40% range and it would have been like 80 degrees, you'd have probably seen some track records, but you didn't get to see that. But I had told you that those cars are so cool 5-6 laps into the race when they start getting into lap traffic and the leader's got to slice and dice and deal with all that. To me, that's just the best racing there is.
And that really, you're absolutely right. It happened pretty quickly, and the first time that we saw a long green flag run, but probably I think about 10 or I think it was actually 12 laps. First caution came out right away on the opening lap. Jason Johnson and Paul McMahon spun around on themselves. Both cars were able to get refired. And then after about running 12 laps of green flag, your leader, Darren Pittman, was starting to get back into lap traffic, and Donnie Schatz was able to suck up to him and start to challenge him for the lead. We only were in lap traffic for a couple of laps before the caution came out on lap number 12 for Daniel Harding, who spins it in turn 4. Excuse me, that was on lap 10 that happened. So in turn number 4, he spins, retires for the rest of the night due to damage on his car, and he made contact with the inside, that tire on the inside. I don't know how he got in there, but he ended up making contact with it and brought out the caution. Had a red flag for a little while. Shortly after that, on lap number 12, for Austin McCarl, who was involved, and Cap Henry, who was also involved. Both those cars heavy damage, but they were fine. And then it kind of went green from there. And Kyle Larson ended up talking about it later. He was getting pretty frustrated with the amount of cautions they were having because he needed to keep his momentum up in order to start building up any speed and grip and getting to moving and knocking down starting position or knocking down positions. Everyone was saying, you keep your eye on that 15 car, Donnie Schatz, because he's just waiting. He's biding his time. His car really went away late. I was kind of surprised because I've seen him do that 100 times, where he looks like his car is flat through a majority of the race. And I've seen Scott Bloomquist do it too. You halfway through the race, 3/4 of the way through the race, you look up at the board and you're like, geez, he's only in third. He's only in fourth. There's not a lot of laps left. He better get to moving, and before you know it, boom, he's gone. Either the car came to him or he finally decided, I'm going to show my hand and start making my way.
Well, that's usually what the case is. Those guys know, as I don't know if you particularly remember a year ago when we interviewed Justin Zeitner after his races down in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And the one night he had the 9th place finish, and he just kept saying, I was saving my tires for all the restarts that never happened, And those guys will do that. They'll try and save their tires and just kind of ride along. Everybody thinks it's only done when you're on a 500-mile race. No, if you're on a 30 or 40-lap feature, those guys will do it too, just to save the equipment and then just tear it up at the end.
So we got back under green, and I kept watching as Darren Pittman was putting down some pretty good laps. Shots kept falling back, and he kept falling back, and pretty soon here comes Shane Stewart. He's starting to battle shots, and then all of a sudden Kyle Larson, it was a 3-car battle for the second spot, and things started to continue to happen, and the laps are winding down. Larson gets by Stewart and Schatz. He's able to take over second. He catches up to Pittman, but I look down on my laptop on the second to last lap. There's 2 laps to go. Typing up some notes on my laptop, and I look up and I hear Johnny Gibson scream. Larson goes high for the lead. He's got him. There he goes, Larson by in turn 1. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? But he found something, and Pittman got a little stuck behind lap traffic and blew right by him. And one of the few times I was able to hear the crowd cheer over the roar of the engines. And Larson came by that start-finish line to people standing up, screaming, cheering, hollering, hearing that was probably the top 5 race they've ever seen at Eagle Raceway. It was a fantastic race. It was a pretty good track. That hole in turn 1 kind of showed up again, but that's a little bit of the character for Eagle Raceway.
Well, and they I don't know how much they got of that 4 inches of rain in 3 hours that Lincoln had got on Monday. I don't know how much of that got over to Eagle, but that wouldn't have helped that hole, because I know Roger works that track all week long and tries. He's been trying to get rid of that hole for years. It just keeps showing up.
That hole is an underground spring that he has dug it up 3 or 4 times, tiled it, filled it, tried everything. It's just a part of Eagle Raceway. I'm not entirely sure there's a way to get that thing to go away.
Well,
because
there
Roger
is.
would have found it if he's tried.
There is. They need to regrade the rest of the racetrack down to that level.
Okay. So it's just a part of the track. And like everyone says, there's drivers that are complaining that, that damn hole in turn 1, yada, yada. Well, you know what? There was 15 other guys that got through that hole just fine.
Kind of like checking at a NASCAR race.
Jack Dover's talked about it. He said, you know what? There's a way to go around that track and not hit that hole. You got to find it, and then you got to be faster in 3 and 4. It's as simple as it can be. You may not like the hole, but there's a way to get around it. And by the way, Jack Dover for the 305 race started outside pole, and Gene Ackland had the pole, and boy, did he have a fast car for a majority of that race. After a while, Jack tried the low side, tried the middle groove, tried the high side, tried everything, just could not get past Ackland. And I think Ackland burnt his tires off, or he got tired, and Dover was able to catch up to him and get by him, and Dover got the win. And I was really impressed. The last 10 laps, I'm watching the race monitor for Jack Dover, and Dover's running, 14.5. I think 14.4 was his fastest lap. And he's running 14.5, 14.6s every lap when he got out front. He never slowed down. But when he got out of that car, he goes, I can't believe how tired I am. He goes, these cars aren't that fast. They're not that hard to manhandle. But he goes, I am exhausted. And Gene Ackland was talking about it. He was catching his breath. He just ran out of gas. Metaphorical gas, not literal gas.
Yeah.
He didn't actually.
Body gas, not race car gas.
Correct. So that was the night. Kyle Larson got the win, and Jack Dover got the win for the 305s. Good night. I was a little disappointed with the World of Outlaw guys. Now, I've always held people to the standard of Tony Stewart, which is a pretty high standard.
Sometimes it's a high standard.
Last time, when Tony Stewart was at Eagle Raceway, in 2013, I believe, maybe 14, I think it was 13. It was a Saturday night. It was an ASCS show, and on Sunday they were racing. I believe they were racing at Kansas that morning.
Correct.
And Tony Stewart stayed in the pits till about 2:30 that morning, signing autographs until everybody had had a chance to get a picture, sign an autograph, talk to him a little bit.
But that wasn't a World of Outlaw driver.
Very true. By the time I got in there was probably 5 World of Outlaw haulers left. And I got in because, again, they moved the World of Outlaw feature up. Typically, it's going to be the last feature of the night. They moved it up and raced the 305 feature afterwards. We had a couple of cautions and I believe a red flag for about 10 or 15 minutes to clean up a caution. And so they had probably 35, 45 minutes between their feature ending and the race being over. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s team, the winning team, was gone by the time I got into the pits at the end of the night.
Do you know where they were headed and if they were racing anywhere Wednesday night?
They were not racing anywhere Wednesday night. They were not racing anywhere Thursday night. They were racing somewhere on Friday night, and I believe it was in South Dakota.
Because I was going to say, if some of the guys, if they had to head back to a shop or something out of Indiana or something, and they wanted to beat all these storms that we're worried about.
That's where I give them a little bit of leeway, is that there were storms on the way, and what a sloppy mess trying to get out of a dirt track when it's pouring rain, it's slick, trying to get up hills, that kind of stuff. Okay, I'll give them that. But I was just still a little disappointed. I expected more of them to stick around. And, funny story, Donnie Schatz didn't stick around. I thought, of all guys, such a nice, personable man.
Well, I figured that Kyle Larson would have stuck around.
I thought so too.
And that since Stenhouse was here, because obviously they weren't in the transporter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Kyle obviously had to get headed somewhere. He might have had a test or something going on Wednesday. Who knows?
Yep.
But
it happens. I'm not going to hold it against him. I guess I'm just kind of saying it's a little disappointing because I know there was a lot of fans that would have loved to have gone down and bought a T-shirt or met a driver and got a hero card autographed. And it's disappointing, but I understand the circumstances.
And
Please, Danica, don't come yell at me. Don't come yell at me.
I do think it's nice that Kyle Larson still has in his contract that he can go race other places because so many of these guys don't. That's why you don't see Brad Keselowski doing anything. And this all came about after Carl hurt his thumb. I think that was in 2007 or 2008 at I-80 Speedway that most of these guys lost the ability to go race other things. I mean, you don't see Tony having his Prelude to the Dream anymore like he used to have. Where all the Cup guys had come drive the late models and everything. Mm-hmm. Brad Keselowski can't drive anything that he or Roger doesn't own.
Yeah.
So he can drive his own trucks, or he can drive Roger's Xfinity or Cup cars.
Yeah.
But
and that's a
nothing
50-50 thing. Roger Penske has a lot of money sunk into Brad Keselowski. He doesn't want that money going out the window. And we saw this prime example, Tony Stewart breaking his leg at the dirt track in Iowa and sitting out for how many months. And, his sponsors lost out on a lot of money. I'm sure the organization lost out on a lot of money. So it's a 50-50 thing. We'd love to see him come down in here and race, but there's an inherent risk.
Yep.
We got to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 4. We'll preview Michigan, and we're going to recap a couple of the news notes. By the way, the show is definitely going to go long today. Make sure you look us up on Stitcher and YouTube. Both of those shows are going to be the extended version of today's show. We'll have more commentary, recap, and news and notes from the week that was. We'll be back here on the Front Stretch.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosicki have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Heading into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the Front Stretch. Make sure you head over there today for the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan International Raceway. Coverage is on Fox Sports 1 and PRN starting at 2 o'clock. MRN. Fox Sports 1 and MRN starting at 2 o'clock. Make sure you get your picks in on time. Again, they're all due by 2 o'clock today. The green flag will wave just a little bit after 2 o'clock. Stage 1 will end at lap 60. Stage 2 will end at lap 120. The race will be final at lap 200. Last year's winner, Joey Logano, got the win at this race last year, followed by Chase Elliott. Followed by Chase Elliott, then Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, and Kevin Harvick.
Chase Elliott had a bad restart right towards the end of the race, cost him the race last year.
And this time last year, Kyle Larson broke through, got his very first Cup Series career win with the fall race at Michigan, followed by Chase Elliott again, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and Kevin Harvick. Top 5 for the second time. So that's how Michigan will lay out today. Incredibly fast track. This is where aero is going to be incredibly important, right, Dirk?
Well, yeah, but it's where they've taken so much away. If you remember last year in this race, these guys were just all over turns 1 and 2 because they'd go diving into 1 like they used to and be all over the track trying to get through 2. And
was this the race where they tested the aero package we have now?
Correct.
Because I remember it was at Michigan and Kansas?
Michigan and Kentucky.
Okay. I thought Kansas had it too, but I guess that maybe was the year before for the 2016 aero package.
Yeah, I mean, they've been bouncing it all over the place. Yeah. But, this is Michigan and Kentucky have always pretty much been their test tracks on this stuff. And the track, if you've never been there, it's huge. Mm-hmm. It's gigantic. And I mean, they can go 10 cars wide at this place, and there's still room. Yeah. It's just huge. And it's a big D, straight back straightaway, but a big curved front straightaway, which gives them a real weird entrance into turn 1. But it's just like California, and they'll probably have speeds 206, 207 miles an hour, something crazy like that going into turn 1. So it's a lot of racing. That's
actually slower because a few years ago they were talking about them going into turn 1 at 225.
No.
Their average speeds were at about 206, 205, but they were going down into the corner at 225, which was always a big conversation of why are they letting these drivers go into the corners so fast at Michigan and Texas when at Talladega and Daytona we put restrictors on them so they don't go over 205, 208?
Well, I don't ever remember anything going 225 at Michigan, but I could be wrong. But I don't think anything's gone that fast there.
It's an important race today for the Ford drivers because they want to win in Ford's backyard.
Well, and I mean the GM guys want to win up there. Basically, the only backyard it's not is Toyota.
Yeah. Which Toyota's over in California, so Auto Club's an important track because
Correct.
usually it's a big Toyota show up. Today is going to be an American auto manufacturer, even though they're not American built, they're American owned-ish automakers.
But I mean,
it's Muscle City, it's Detroit. They want to perform at Detroit, and they want to win at Michigan.
Well, Roush for years had his shops and everything up in Michigan, even though he's got stuff in the Charlotte area now. But Roush was originally into drag racing and road racing before he came over in the mid to late 80s into NASCAR. And, it was just always what he considered his home track. That's why all his guys, when they went to Michigan, always wanted to perform. But Penske's been the same way. Penske used to own the Speedway for quite a while. So
Coverage again kicks off today at 1 o'clock on Fox Sports 1 and MRN. All picks are due by 2 p.m. And speaking of picks, today is the last day to get registered, to get signed up. You got to have your picks submitted by 2 p.m. for the Crewman for a Day contest.
Yeah, it's free. Get in there. We're working on some neat stuff, and whether it's what we've got planned will pan out, but it could really be a cool deal for somebody. Like I said, we've already possibly got you a pit crew job for the day of the race.
If you do well, they may hire you. I mean, that's as...
Billy Moyer's hiring. There's a big ad.
Yeah.
Big ad on Facebook. Billy Moyer's looking for help. So's Cop Motorsports. I put Cop Motorsports ad in, which is kind of neat because I did go ahead and contact them, and we get to sit down with them here Friday coming up at Iowa Speedway. We're going to sit and talk to the Cop Motorsports boys, the 83 truck. And if you guys got time, run on over to Iowa. You got the truck race on Friday night. Yep. You're going to have the Xfinity race on Saturday. Believe me, it's good racing, and I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of Cup drivers come down for this Xfinity show. You might see a couple, but the Xfinity show with Xfinity regulars is a good race. You're going to see Justin Allgaier up front. You're going to see Elliott Sadler real fast there. And hopefully our boy Brendan Gaughan, he had a real good run there a year ago.
He did against Ryan Blaney.
Yep.
Yep.
And
that was 2 years
came
ago,
up 2 years ago. Yeah, came up a little bit short, but Brendan can show up and be right out front any given day.
So the Crewman for a Day contest again kicks off today, and if you're new to it, you haven't heard about it, and you're wanting to get more information about it, we'll go through it briefly right now. But the easiest way is to email us frontstretchradio@gmail.com. First off, thanks to Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners. The contest is completely free to anybody and everybody that wants to participate. Well, except they do have to be 18 or older because we can't allow anybody younger than 18 in the pits. The way it works is you tell me, well, you don't tell me anymore. You used to tell me. You'll log on to NASCARpoolsonline.com. You'll create yourself a profile. If you don't have one already, if you're already participating in the season-long contest, just go to Open Pools or create a pool or join a pool, and then we'll send you the information on how to join that pool.
Or if you were in the last one, last Crewman for a Day.
Yep, you've already got an account. You can join our contest. Again, it's absolutely free. And then for the next 5 weeks, you will submit your pick on NASCAR Pools Online, who you think is going to do the best. And then you'll get the championship driver points for your picked driver's finishing position.
And any penalty points they may incur on Tuesday or Wednesday.
And that was fun last time when the winning driver, one of the drivers ended up incurring a penalty, and the person that finished third fell to fifth, but still ended up making it in the contest.
Yeah, still got tickets. Contest is also brought to you by Iowa Speedway.
Yep.
And by David Starr's Racing Group, which is owned by Bobby Dotter. They're going to help us out this year. And like I said, it's free. Get in there. Top 5 people are going to win some great prizes. The winner, we've had 2 winners so far. If you know them or have talked to them, they had great experiences.
By the way, bad news for everybody else. Chris is back in this contest. He sent in his form last night.
We'll have to, if he starts winning every week, I mean, 3 out of 5 winners last time was pretty impressive.
That was impressive. He may have a sophomore slump now.
And he would definitely want to hold the pit sign if he got in.
Again, it's a really cool experience that you'll get to help push the car through tech inspection. So you'll show up Saturday morning before the race, and the team usually feeds you because that's usually the better of the food options. They'll feed you. They'll put clothes on you. You're going to want to bring some gloves and make sure that you've got some kind of disposable clothes if you spill anything on it, because they're going to put you to work. You're going to be moving tires. You might be changing oil. They may even let you adjust on the car depending on their level of comfort.
Probably not going to lash the valves.
You're gonna push it through tech inspection. You're gonna push it out onto the starting grid. You'll be able to sit on the pit box, space pending availability. You will get race radios to be able to listen back and forth with crew chief, spotter, and driver interaction.
And it's not only Saturday. If you can make it up Friday for practice, get yourself a motel room for Friday night. Go ahead. You can go up. Your passes will be good on Friday.
Yep.
They do have. Is it a K&N race that week or an ARCA race?
It is
K&N
a
race.
Yeah, it is. Yes, that weekend. I get this coming weekend.
This is
and
trucks.
that weekend.
Yeah, that weekend is K&N race on Friday night. Then there's a big concert there at the Speedway.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be able to get into all that with your garage passes.
Yep.
So you can stay and you can hang out down on pit road and maybe find yourself a K&N team to apply for a job for, and come back on Saturday. You'll be there when they go through inspection, and then they'll have qualifying, and then they impound the cars. They get to make a few adjustments on them, and then they run the race. So
it's a really cool deal, and all of our winners have had a lot of fun. And by the way, it's not just you; it's you and your friend. So it's two people that get to go in and do this. FrontStretchRadio@gmail.com. Make sure that you send us your information, and we'll get you all signed up for that contest. All right, Dirk, let's talk about a couple of the news and notes. And by the way, this is a Stitcher YouTube exclusive. This portion of the show didn't actually air on AM 590 because we went a little bit long. We had a lot to cover today, and there's a lot of news and notes that I wanted to go through. The biggest one that I think for the week, the coverage that we want to talk about, was Brad Keselowski's in his final year of his contract. And he came out on Monday and talked about how he plans on re-signing with Penske, but the deal's just not done yet. They're kind of finishing some details. That's been kind of more of a topic of conversation throughout the world of NASCAR, both Facebook, social media, the NASCAR sites we go to, and some of the pages or the shows that I listen to. That it's sticking around a lot more than I expected it to, and I think it's starting to get a little bit of legs. I'm not 100% sold that Brad Keselowski is going to re-sign with Penske. I'm still going to bet the farm that he's going to re-sign with Penske, but there's a little bit of doubt that's creeping into my mind, and that's mainly because there is a lot of quality rides that could be opening up in 2018 that he may be entertaining.
Well, we were talking about this before the show started, and in my opinion, the only quality ride, the only grade A ride that's out there is probably two rides that I think are going to be available at Penske. I do believe the 5 is going to be available, and we already know the 88 is going to be available.
You mean the two rides at Hendrick?
Or Hendrick, excuse me. But I don't think they're any better than Penske by any means. And is Penske going to go ahead and expand? I mean, Penske's just looking at a simple fact right now that half these fields have 39 cars. We can bring a third car to the track, and we're going to be in the race whether we want to be or not. You know, we don't need the charter for the third team or anything like that. And I just wonder going, further down the line, NASCAR is almost going to have to do something with these charters if they want to expand. If they want to start getting back to where they've got 43 and 45 teams, they're going to have to do a little more on this charter stuff or take less of them. Drop the charters back to 30. So where if there's 15 teams trying to qualify for 10 spots instead of 10 teams trying to qualify for 4 spots. That's the only way they're going to get the expansion done. The only way. And they want to expand. They almost need to expand. They got to expand at least one team to get back to a full field. Mm-hmm. And if Penske goes to a third team, which has been a huge rumor since Carl Edwards says, I'm going to go take a break. Mm-hmm. No,
he didn't say take a break. He said, I'm retiring.
No, he didn't say retire.
He said he's stepping away from full-time driving.
He said he's taking a break. He didn't say retire. He did not. He's specific. I'm not using the R word. Mm-hmm. That was his quote. So I totally expect Carl to be back in a car. And I honestly still expect him to be back maybe in an Xfinity race or a truck race this fall sometime, just so he's not totally rusted up, for a year. I expect him to make it, but maybe I'm wrong, and he might be practicing with somebody and doing some testing. Who knows? But
let's get back to Brad Keselowski. You think the 5 and the 88 are the quality rides that are opening up. There also could be the 10 opening up at Stewart-Haas Racing for Danica Patrick. She has made comments recently while she's in she's actually in the she has this year and next year left on her contract. But I've heard they're working on buying her out of her final year because they don't have a sponsorship for the rest of that 10 car.
I don't see Brad in any way, shape, or form moving to another Ford team.
Mm-hmm.
I do not see that happening because they're all affiliated with Penske, and that's not going to happen. If he leaves, he's going to go to either a Toyota team or a Chevy team, and I don't know of any monster Toyota rides that are going to open up.
I don't believe Stewart-Haas Racing is affiliated with Penske. They're affiliated with Roush.
Well, Roush, I mean, they all run the same engines, and Ford has gotten very big back into sponsoring their teams, which they lacked for a few years, and I think that was part of Roush's problem.
Well, maybe that's the deal. I mean, maybe that's what's going on. Maybe Chevy's putting a deal together because they got to bring a big name back over into the Chevy camp. They've lost Stewart-Haas Racing. They lost Furniture Row Racing. They've lost a couple of teams over the last couple of years that have hurt the amount of money that is going into Hendrick for engine building and that is coming in for research and development. Maybe that's what they're trying to do is they're trying to put a deal together and saying we're going to lose Dale Earnhardt Jr., we're going to lose Casey Kane. We've lost Stewart-Haas Racing, and we've lost Martin Truex Jr. We need to go get Brad Keselowski. Maybe they're putting a deal together to say, hey, Brad, come race a bow tie for the last couple of years of your career.
Well, and as Brad said the other day, I mean, he's definitely got 10 years of racing left.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And so not the last couple of years of your career. That wouldn't be now. And you and I both know that there's a little bit of animosity between him and Mr. Hendrick.
But wouldn't you? I think I agree. He's mentioned it before. Hendrick, he was a developmental driver for Rick Hendrick. He was doing well in the Xfinity Series. Everything was pointing towards him taking over that 5 ride. And then all of a sudden, Rick Hendrick decided to put Mark Martin in that car instead, and it kind of chapped Brad's hide a little bit. And he went and signed with Penske, which I don't fault him for at all. I think he was absolutely right to go and do that, and it's worked out well in his favor. But I think that. I have to imagine that him and Rick Hendrick have worked things out, or they are in the process of working things out. Because I would imagine that Brad would love to go back and race for Hendrick. I guess I shouldn't say that because he's got a great thing going on at Penske. So why would
you leave?
This is one of the few sports left in this world that it's not all about the money. We were talking about this again pre-show. I don't think there's a lot of drivers out there that make moves anymore based off of how much are you going to pay me. They make moves off of how much can you get me closer to a championship.
Exactly.
Carl Edwards made that move to Joe Gibbs Racing because his buddy Matt Kenseth made the move a year before and rattled off 7 wins at Joe Gibbs Racing when he went winless the year before at Roush. Kevin Harvick made the move over to Stewart-Haas Racing because he was unhappy with the way Richard Childress Racing was developing his program.
Well, he saw that, his grandkids were coming up, and even one of them has left the fold and went over to Geico, which is now affiliated with Richard Childress Racing.
But I think Boyer left because he saw the writing on the wall, but I think Harvick left because he was unhappy with the quality of what he was able to get them. And it shows true. Harvick won a championship. It took RCR 100 and some odd races to get back into victory lane after Kevin Harvick won their last race. But we've seen this before where in NASCAR, it's less about how much are you going to pay me and more about how closer can you get me to a championship.
Exactly.
And I think that would be the only logical move for Brad Keselowski, which it's not a logical move because I think he's just as close to a championship with Penske as he is with if he moved to Hendrick or to Stewart-Haas Racing or
correct. I mean
something like that.
That's why I said it's a lateral move at best. He's not moving up the food chain at all. It's not like he's with Roush.
Yeah.
Where any move would be up the food chain, or maybe he was the second car at Furniture Row, or he's with Richard Childress. Even though Childress is really having a good year and a comeback year, so that's a little rough to say at this point.
And we can all agree that Harvick's move was an upgrade.
Absolutely.
Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards' moves were both upgrades. So these things happen. There's ebb and flows to these things, and it'll be interesting to see what Brad does. Maybe it'll be signed before this show airs, and it'll be all for naught. But maybe not. Maybe it'll take another couple of weeks, another couple of months before something gets finalized. I always wonder about the sponsorship side of it. If Miller is a Brad guy or if they're a Penske guy. And from what I understand, they're a Penske team. So if Brad leaves, one of his draws is not Miller. He does not get to bring that Miller sponsorship with him.
Correct. Yeah, Miller's. I mean, they were with Penske through Rusty Wallace and everything, so that they're with Penske. They're not going anywhere. They're not like Budweiser, who moved, with
Harvick.
Correct, and left with Harvick, etc. I mean, everybody kind of thought Napa might be the same way when Martin Truex moved, but no, Napa was with Michael Waltrip, and they went and found Hendrick, So yeah, it's not a sponsored deal, and I don't think it's a sponsored deal for Hendrick either. Hendrick's going to sell his sponsorship no matter who takes over that car, but
they're going to have a tough and right now they have a tough time selling that 88, by the way, because Dale doesn't have a full season sponsored this year. They're still looking for a couple of races to pick up.
Well, and part of that's because he's announced his retirement.
Well, they hadn't finished it before they announced it, though.
If he was going to be racing for another 3 years, then you've got seasonal packages. You can offer somebody 3 races for the next 3 years. You can't do that now. You're offering a Dale Earnhardt one-off.
You don't think Hendrick's out there hawking deals saying, you want a 3-race deal on Dale's final ride? I'll give you a deal on it. Come on, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the last person that shouldn't have a non-fully funded car.
Dale Earnhardt, let's be honest, probably shouldn't be driving a race car right now. He has not performed at all.
Yeah. But they also lost a sponsorship, 2 sponsorships on that 5 car. So Hendrick's in sponsorship issues. They've not only got to find a way to fill up the rest of those two sponsorships for the 5 car, they've got to fill up the sponsorships that are going to be left when Dale Earnhardt Jr. retires.
But again, they're sponsorships on their cars that are having trouble. They're not having any trouble with Jimmy Johnson sponsorships, and they're not having any trouble with Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
Both those guys are performing right now. So that's a part of the issue.
I wonder if they'll retire the 5 for the time being. Move some of that sponsorship dollars over the 88, be a 3-car organization until they can regroup.
No, I don't see that because, again, NASCAR will step in and help before that happens.
I don't know. I think it's a smart move for Hendrick. I think it's a smart move. I know as little as I do know. But if you're struggling in that 5 car, and that 5 car has struggled not just this year, but for the last 3 or 4 years, maybe it's Casey Kane, maybe it's not. We don't know what the issue is because we're not in that shop. But maybe the smarter move is for them to drop down to 3 teams for the time being, regroup, lease that charter out to somebody. Maybe they lease it out to Penske for that third car for the time being.
That would be the place. I definitely don't think it would go, but I very much see them trying to find another young driver. I mean, they kind of, everybody thinks Joe Gibbs has missed out on Eric Jones. Now he's with the Satellite Gibbs team, so he hasn't gone anywhere.
He still has a developmental deal with Joe Gibbs Racing. As soon as Joe Gibbs Racing needs him back, he'll come right out of Furniture Racing and go over there. But again, the issue is not talent for Hendrick Motorsports. They've got a wealth of talent to draw from the smaller series.
Except they don't have it behind the wheels of their cars right now, and they don't have a ton of Xfinity and truck stuff out there. Every once in a while, Rick will do something with JR Motorsports. Mm-hmm. You'll see some extra cars out there. But look at the two top JR Motorsports driver, Justin Allgaier and Elliott Sadler. Elliott Sadler, he's past the window. I'm sorry.
I agree.
You might see him hit and miss in a cup deal, and I believe the same with Justin Allgaier, but maybe with Justin Allgaier having a good year, and maybe if he wins that Xfinity championship, maybe you see him in that 5 car or the 88 car.
I think he's close to passing his prime also.
Exactly.
But they have the who was the kid they just signed? The Christopher Bell, or who was the guy?
William Byron.
They have him under a developmental contract. I mean, it would be bad timing, but they could throw him in a car. I don't think Hendrick has any. Hendrick's biggest issue right now is sponsorships.
Yeah.
They have 2 missing from their 5 organization. They have a couple of races missing from the 88. Who knows what the horizon says for 2018, because there could be a couple of sponsors that say, I signed on the dotted line for 4 years for Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's not in that 88. We're done after this year, or we're restructuring our contract or something to that order.
And that very well could be, because whoever steps into that car is, if it's not a superstar, if it is a William Byron or something, he's not going to get Earnhardt type money.
No,
not as a rookie in the Cup Series.
Absolutely not.
Even though I'm sure Blaney's getting paid rather handsomely, and I think Chase Elliott probably is too, and I'm pretty sure Eric Jones is. I mean, they're getting paid more than most rookies would be making. But you got Alex Bowman, who did real good in that 88 car last year as a fill-in driver.
I think he's top of the line to fill in unless Hendrick can go out and get somebody big. And, as I'm kind of sitting here wondering, forgive me if I upset anybody with this thought process, but I think one of the major reasons why Rick Hendrick signed Dale Earnhardt Jr. was what he may lack in purse winnings, he can make up for handsomely in merchandising money. And Hendrick probably gets a good percentage, 2%, 3% of all the merchandising sold.
Oh, he probably gets a lot more percentage than that.
Maybe 10. Well, I mean, I can't imagine it's a huge chunk because a lot of it's going to go to Dale Earnhardt and to the merchandising company.
Well, yeah, but it just depends. Hendrick might own his merchandising company.
Yeah. So, anyways, my point is, if the 88's going to be empty, I wonder if Hendrick doesn't go and try to work out a deal with Danica Patrick. Because if there's the best thing Danica Patrick does is sell merchandise. She is one of the top 5 merchandise sellers.
But she stepped on her toes here in the last week, with her complaining about, the autograph deal.
Did you watch the video?
Yeah.
I saw a video of Danica Patrick goes and cusses out his fan, and I'm like, that was clickbait. It's the reason why I didn't share it on the Front Stretch Facebook page. That'll be a conversation for a little bit down the road, but I don't think that's an issue at all. I'm curious. I'm kind of thinking out loud here with, I wonder if he wouldn't entertain putting her in the 88 for maybe a year or two, seeing if they can't work things out with her talent-wise and get her developed a little bit more while he's reaping the rewards of her merchandising sales.
Yeah, see, I don't see that happen because I don't think her merchandising sales would come over the amount of equipment she tears up, and she does tear up equipment. I'm not saying it's always her fault. Obviously, Kansas wasn't, but she just happens to be in a lot of accidents.
Hey, Dale blew 2 motors this last weekend. He cost that company quite a bit of money. It's just a thought process. I wonder if, and again, going back to where I'm starting with this, I think Alex Bowman is kind of the default guy to get that 88 ride for 2018, unless Hendrick can work out a deal to get somebody else to come over and sit down in that 88 seat.
Well,
so I think the way it's going to work out is that Hendrick is trying to find some big name to put in that car. Because like you talked about, big name can draw on a lot better sponsors than a young developmental driver that can.
Well, they've got 2 cars to fill. Mm-hmm. So, they need to try and bring in a name into one of them, and hopefully a name that's got something in their pocket. Who
in the Xfinity Series would you think would be the next to move up? Bubba Wallace?
Well, he's getting his shot right now.
He's a Ford guy.
He's getting his shot.
But he doesn't. After Eric Almirola is back, Bubba Wallace is out of a ride completely. He doesn't even get to go back down in the Xfinity Series unless some ride happens to pop up somewhere for him to take over.
Correct.
But Bubba's out of a ride. Maybe he's after Bubba Wallace. Maybe that could be an idea for him.
Well, that could be. I mean, I know NASCAR, and just from having worked for NASCAR, I know NASCAR gives concessions for the Drive for Diversity type stuff. I can remember talking to the Petty guys when they had Carlos Contreras driving, out of Mexico. He was the first guy to come out of Mexico, not Daniel Suarez. And they had Willie T. Ribbs, and, they had several guys. Willie T. Ribbs had been driving Bill Cosby's Indy car and all this kind of stuff, But the Drive for Diversity deal, NASCAR gives a ton of concessions on that stuff. So to see Bubba Wallace picked up, because he seems pretty capable of winning some races. The worst case scenario, he's going to be back in a truck. That's, I pretty much think, worst case scenario. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him get picked up somewhere.
Let's move gears sorry, you want to finish?
Yeah, I was just going to say that with Hendrick needing 2 drivers, to get an established driver is going to be one thing that they probably need to try and do. Mm-hmm. And the other guy, especially if William Byron shows up here in the second half of the Xfinity Series and maybe wins a race, if he wins a race in the Xfinity Series or finishes maybe in the top 3 in the title chase, I think you see him in one of those 2 rides.
I agree. All right, let's quick switch gears just a quick minute. We're going to step away from the current NASCAR topics and talk about the Kevin Ward, Tony Stewart situation one more time. Mediation between the 2 plaintiffs, the Ward family and the Stewart side, have failed to resolve the issue, so it looks like it's going to go back to a partial summary judgment on Stewart's behalf that'll be heard on June 23rd in New York. And this, I want to stress, this is all my opinion. This just won't go away. And I hope that Tony offers absolutely nothing to the family. And that the reason why this mediation failed was because the family said, okay, you just pay us $2 million and we'll go away. And Tony said no. And they said, oh, okay. You pay us $1 million and we'll go away. And Tony said, no, we're going to go to court and I'm going to get cleared of all this stuff because your son was high. And again, this is all my opinion. This is not fact-based, except for the high part. He tested positive for THC in his system, a high enough level that experts agree that he was high at the time of the accident. He got out of his car. He walked down the track. Regardless of what Tony might have done, and I realize I'm a Stewart fan, so I may be giving him a little bit of leeway here. Maybe Tony shouldn't have buzzed his tires. Maybe he did. I don't know what actually happened out there, but I do know you don't come down the track. You don't walk into traffic, and you don't do it anytime, no matter how mad you are. You see red, you do some stupid stuff. Unfortunately, it was a mistake that he paid his life with. And this every time this lawsuit pops up, it just makes me mad again.
Well, and it is. I mean, terrible situation, but it's, you played a stupid game, you won a stupid prize. Unfortunately, I mean, and that's callous to say, but it's a terrible tragedy, but I don't believe Tony was at fault any way, shape, or form, and I don't think he should have to pay. And my guess is you're probably right. They probably asked for a bunch of money, and I am sure Tony offered them something, and probably fairly substantial.
In my opinion, if the Ward family, after this all would have happened, would have sat down with Tony and said, let's figure out something, I'm sure Tony would have been happy to write him a check and just say, I feel terrible what happened, yada, yada.
I'm not admitting any guilt,
right?
But
instead,
here's a check.
They came out in the media and they called him a murderer. They called him a liar. They ran his name through mud, no pun intended. They've done some pretty harsh things to him, and I think at this point he's dug his heels in the ground, and we all know how Tony Stewart can get when he digs his heels in the ground.
Yeah.
He's not going to give up.
No, and obviously he's. Darn well he's more well-funded than the Ward family is, unless they hit a lottery or something like that. But, it's something it's taken way too long, way too long. This should have been. But
this is the way our court systems work. Something happens, and then it's 3 or 4 months till the next thing that happens. And
and more than likely the Wards probably have some lawyer that's saying, I'm going to win this for you. I'm going to get you $5 million and everything else. And, I won't get paid if I don't win,
And he's racking up the hours in the time being, hoping he can win and get a paycheck.
And hoping he can win and take a third of it or whatever they end up getting. But, hopefully that's not the case. And hopefully it just kind of goes away. Hopefully a judge looks at it and says, you guys couldn't get through mediation. You're done. Case dismissed.
Right.
I'm hoping that's what happens.
And I cannot imagine that Tony could be held to any guilt as soon as that test result came back that Kevin was high. I mean, that kind of, in the world of most things that happens, when you are under the influence of anything, it pretty much all guilt falls into your hands. It doesn't matter if you are standing in the middle of an intersection holding a sign that says, please stop. If you're high while doing it, you get run over, it is your fault. Yeah. Whatever you believe on drugs and alcohol, it doesn't matter in general opinion for society and in courts. When you come back positive for under the influence of anything, you're generally going to be guilty of everything.
Well, and that's like the one I've seen a lot lately because we still see. There was another comment here in the last week or two about the NASCAR not allowing the weed manufacturer on the car at Kansas Speedway, and somebody put up a thing about. The people get killed drinking and driving, and that nobody's ever done that with weed. Well, first of all, it's very seldom checked that anybody was high or stoned when they got in a car accident. So nobody knows how many thousands or hundreds of millions of people, but everybody does know that Kevin Ward got killed. So it was a car accident, and somebody has died. So quit putting your zero up there because there's now a fact.
Well, let's first off stop getting upset on facts on Facebook. Okay.
Well,
unfortunately, people take it for what it's worth, and I agree with you. There is no field sobriety test for weed, and so for police officers to be able to conduct that, and for that statistic to be able to enter it in, it's pretty naive for somebody to post that and say, well, nobody's ever died of a car accident by being stoned.
But, I mean, people everywhere are saying, well, weed's legal. Well, now, if this race would have been at, say, Pikes Peak International Raceway in Colorado, where weed is legal in that state. NASCAR still wouldn't have allowed it because weed is not legal at the federal level anywhere.
And there's when you're in a competition like that or you're at a building, I mean, me drinking a beer is perfectly legal. Me drinking a beer at work, that, however, is not legal.
Well,
so
it's legal. It's not very smart.
It's not. You're correct. It's not illegal to the state. It is illegal to my company's employment process, my employment abilities. And I've talked to Joe Koziski about this. Every time he goes down to Daytona for Speed Weeks, he spends most of his times in meetings with NASCAR officials, NASCAR lawyers, and all these different
people,
right,
not officials like we know them, but administration.
Right, and they're telling him the things that they're telling their own tracks, ISC and what's the other one? The International Speedway Corporation.
That's ISC.
And what's the other one?
Well, the other one's Speedway Motors.
Speedway Motors. Thank you.
But that's Bruton's company, correct?
They're telling their two tracks. There's a level of ownerability on these tracks that if somebody at I-80 was to go to the races and be stoned and to get into an accident, there is a level of culpability for I-80 Speedway because they didn't have some sort of testing procedure. So right now, I-80 is working with their lawyers to try to figure out how can we test these guys. And it's a slippery slope. And unfortunately, you sit there and say, Joe shouldn't have to worry about this. Who in their stupid mind would go out there and race high or drunk? We all know it's been done. You've stopped it as an official with some guy pre-race chugging a beer before he goes out and races. It's just sometimes these things just don't occur to people.
Well, it's the same thought process as the people that do it on the highway.
Yeah.
And it's just the same thing. I don't think anybody in their right mind, and it's public record, I've had 2 DWIs. I never drank in 30 years, but I had 2 DWIs. And it was never in my thought process when I climbed behind my car, whether I'd had 1 beer or 10 beers, that I'm going to go out and hurt anybody. That was never, ever in my intention, hurting me or anybody else. And thank God that I never hurt anybody but myself, as far as a drinking accident goes. But the guys don't think about that when they've had a few beers and jump behind the wheel. I mean, they could be out fishing all day and they've had 10 beers on the lake and they go home and pick up the race car and show up at the racetrack. I mean, NASCAR does very stringent testing, and they had started that when I was still working. And you could get pulled over and told to pee into the cup at any race.
That's how A.J. Allmendinger got in trouble.
That's how A.J. got in trouble, and he took some cold tablet that somebody of his gave him, and you talk to Brad Keselowski.
Adderall.
Brad won't even take an aspirin.
Yeah.
Because he goes, I don't know what it's going to show up like on a test if I get tested.
So there's a lot of things that, unfortunately, because of this Ward situation, the fun at the dirt track is going to get a little bit less because they're going to have to come up with some sort of drug policy in order to keep their insurance.
Well, and there's so many short tracks in the country. I'm sure NASCAR's probably run into an incident, maybe in a track in California, maybe one in New York, maybe one in Florida. There are just so many tracks that run under the NASCAR banner and under the IMCA banner. I know IMCA frowns on it too, but they don't have near the exposure, obviously, with all the TV stuff that NASCAR sees. So
and NASCAR's got the fortune that they're obviously probably the most successful sanctioning body out there. Would you agree?
Yeah. Obviously, with where they're at, I mean, the people that own it are all billionaires. So,
And so they've had the luxury of, A, lot of experience, but B, they also have the money to be able to pay really smart people to build airtight cases for tracks like I-80 Speedway that is NASCAR sanctioned. And with that sanctioning, Joe gets the ability to sit in these meeting rooms and they say, this is what's happening, this is what we're seeing at tracks all over the country, and this is what we're recommending you guys start doing.
Yeah, and if you do this, then you're going to be protected.
Right.
And when Craig Kelly was the promoter, I mean, he is an attorney.
Yeah.
He was smart enough to see a lot of that stuff on his own, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure Joe and Craig have probably had a talk or two about some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, changing subjects one more time. A scan last Friday showed Eric Almirola should return to the race car about July 18th at the Kentucky race. Says he is healing well and that everything's on schedule to be back at the racetrack again July 8th for that race at Kentucky, which is a night race. So we'll be live the next Sunday morning.
Now, I totally expect if Mr. Bubba Wallace, I mean, he had a little incident the other day after Pocono where he passed out after he got out of the car. That was kind of scary looking.
Did you hear why?
No, I never heard anything after it.
I've never been this mad before to pass out, but he said that he was so mad at himself that he's done this 3 other times in his life. He's gotten so mad at himself for making a mistake and for not performing well that he passes out. And then he wakes up and he's perfectly fine. He gets checked out. He goes to the media center and he explains to him. He says, listen, I just got so mad at myself. I've done this 2 other times in my life. I got so mad at myself. I got so worked up and I passed out.
When he came to and they put him on a golf cart, he definitely wasn't fine.
Yeah, you're a little fuzzy when you first wake up.
He was way fuzzy. They could barely get him into the golf cart, and then he about collapsed again. So, I hope that's the reason. I hope it wasn't an actual physical issue, but I hope that he can perform here in these next couple races, and if he can grab a top 15 or luck into it, back into it, a top 10.
Yeah.
You might see the 43 boys over there at Petty Enterprises try and figure out, are we going to put Eric back in the car because he can't qualify for the championship unless he gets a medical, release on, for being out, which he probably would if he would go out and win a race or something. Mm-hmm. Or are we going to ride Bubba and see what Bubba can do for us the rest of the season? You might see, it's trying to pick a first or second string quarterback there.
And I'm trying to remember if they have a second charter. Because they ran the 8 car for a long time. Or no, not the 9 car.
Well, no, they ran the 44 car just last year with Brian Scott.
Yep. So they do they must have a charter.
Well,
I think they do. I wonder if they leased that one.
It's probably leased out.
Because the 44 wasn't running when they came up with the charter system.
Yeah, so
but I can't remember if the 9 had been running or not.
I'm not sure if they had one charter or two, because I don't think Brian Scott had a charter because he missed a few races for not having a charter. Mm-hmm. But that's an interesting question. If they had a second charter or not, and if it's leased out, if they've got something that they can put together.
Yeah.
Because again, with the Drive for Diversity deal, and it's not a secret. It's Bubba's a black guy. He
is?
Yeah. You just thought he was real tan, and I've met him once. Seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
Everybody in the garage likes him.
And he is talented. I mean, he is a talented wheel guy. I think he's a little over his head right now.
Well, he was. I think the whole deal for Pocono came up so quick. I think, he was, and it showed. I mean, he's driven a lot of races, and to make some of the pit road mistakes he was making. I mean, that one trip down pit road, he was fast in like over half the sections. Yeah. It's not like he was even close, Yeah. And he goes, "I'm putting that green bar on the one bar, and I'm not going any
I'm
faster."
Going one green bar, and that's it.
So but it's hard telling where he's going to end up. But it's a good thing that Eric's getting healed up. And get him back in the car. Mm-hmm. Again, we tried to talk to him last year, and he had an obligation he had to go to, so we didn't get to. But he seems like a nice guy, and obviously getting to talk to Richard Petty, he's still approachable. 81 years old or whatever, and about as big around as this microphone stand I'm looking at.
That guy needs to eat something. He needs some Smithfield meat in him.
It was 85 degrees at Kansas, and he was wearing this black leather jacket trying to stay warm or stay grounded so he wouldn't blow away. I don't know which. But one other thing we got to cover this week is let's go back a week, and let's talk about some tires rolling all over Dover.
Let me pause it real quick. I have got to. All right, you want to talk tires?
No, missing tires, missing lug nuts.
That one.
Yeah, it seems that Kyle Busch really got hit, and a lot of people were saying, well, it is real harsh, for the tire penalty to have a four race suspension for the crew chief and everything. And I agree also to a certain extent, but they have their rule, and that's what the rule is. Yeah. Obviously, the rules was kind of written for their post-race check. The team gets penalized enough when it happens during the race, which was the same thing with Chase Briscoe in Brad Keselowski's truck. The jack man was watching the front tire changer and not paying attention, and when he pulled back, he dropped the chuck, even though there were no lug nuts on either of the two vehicles. It kind of weird that it happened in the same weekend.
I'd never seen it happen before. Well, at least I haven't seen it happen for a long time. I've seen wheels pop off before, but twice in one race weekend was odd.
Yeah.
Especially after NASCAR put such a focus on 5 off, 5 on.
But they did, they penalized them both the same. The truck got the same type of penalty. Chase Briscoe also got hit with one missing lug nut at Pocono, which was, I believe, just a $2,500 fine, and I don't even think it's any points.
No.
And Daniel Suarez got a lug nut, and I believe his was the same deal, was just one lug nut.
One lug nut in the Cup Series is a $10,000 fine.
Correct. And it's 10 points, too, isn't it, in the Cup Series? No points in the Cup
Not
Series?
for one lug nut. You don't start losing points until 3 lug nuts.
Okay. But, so Suarez got hit with it, and I don't know if you noticed, but they'll go through at the end of the race, you'll see them stopping the guys a lot of times right when they come onto pit road, and they'll even take some torque wrenches over and hit some guys sometimes. Now, I don't know if they did with Ryan Blaney over the weekend, but did you see the official that came out of the flag stand and gave him the flag, stopped him, and made sure he had all his lug nuts on?
They kind of laughed about it because they made him sit there and wait, and while the official checked him and then gave him the
thumbs up in the tower. Yeah. The thumbs up was not for him; it was for the tower.
Yeah.
So that's where that was going.
So, by the way, I pulled it up. Chase Briscoe, $2,500 fine for the crew chief, and crew chief for the 19 of Daniel Suarez, who was Scott Graves, $10,000 fine.
Correct. And the crew chief for the 29 would have been a different crew chief because the other guy, I believe, is on suspension.
He is.
So, unless they appealed.
And I kind of played that out on Facebook a little bit, too. When that was first announced, you went back and looked at what happened with Kyle Busch, and the camera was right there and saw it. You could tell right away what happened. It was a mistake, and I kind of went on Facebook and I said, NASCAR needs to look at this, that it's a mistake, and tailor the penalty accordingly.
Well, again, it's during the race. He penalized himself,
right? But and I didn't think he deserved to get penalized at all because it was a mistake. A mistake is one thing. A advantage is another thing, and I Chet Stambaugh, who's one of the fine supporters of this show, him and he kind of pointed out, he says, NASCAR can't really fine somebody on intent. And I kind of got to thinking about it, and I said, you know what, you're absolutely right for 2 reasons. The biggest reason is that if NASCAR started fining people on intent, these teams would find a way to make it look like intent. So, for instance, that jack man would just... or the tire changer would hit 3 of them, and then if NASCAR got it, said, well, it was a mistake. They dropped the jack too soon, and I wasn't able to get to it, and you didn't penalize Kyle Busch. So it's a black and white penalty, and for a safety issue and for this issue, I got completely turned around on Facebook thanks to Chet and having conversations with the people. I agree. I think it's an incredibly unfortunate situation that hurt Brad Keselowski, that hurt Kyle Busch quite a bit, but that's the breaks.
But everything they do is on intent. I mean, every penalty is on intent. The racer, the crew chief, whoever made the call to do whatever happened, whether it's missing lug nuts, whether it's tweaking the rear end a little too much, tweaking the body a little, whatever it happens to be, whoever made that call made it with intent to circumvent the rules.
But in the Kyle Busch thing, I don't think that was intent. I think that was just a bad pit stop. He dropped the lug nut, and he was trying to get it started back on there so he could hit the other ones, and they dropped the jack and took off. He didn't have time. But then again, like you're saying, we don't know that wasn't the case.
Well,
is that what you're trying to say?
What I'm saying is nobody sent that car out there with no lug nuts on it. Nobody is going to do that because you know it's not going to stay. You're in the middle of the race. Mm-hmm. That tire's not going to stay on for a lap.
It didn't stay on for a corner.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The loads that are on those tires and on these cars on a bank track like that, even a flat track, it's not going to make any difference on the track. The tire's not going to stay on without any lug nuts. Mm-hmm. So they didn't do it on purpose.
Right. And that's what I was saying. They should give him a break because you could tell it wasn't on purpose. But then as I was talking with Chad, I'm kind of, that's a slippery slope for NASCAR because then you're trying to rule on intent. Did they do it on purpose? Did they intend to do it on purpose, or was it an accident? And then if they start ruling on that case, then teams are going to find a way to manipulate it to look like it was on purpose or it was an accident.
Yeah, see, I don't buy that. Because it's the lug nut rule. It's one specific rule. It's not like these guys throwing their hip into the body panel on the other side of the car. I just leaned against it in the body panel. Yeah, but you've been told 100 times not to touch the car.
Yeah.
So, there was intent.
Well,
you leaned on
right,
it.
and we've seen it. We watched him do it at Kansas. I mean, they've been called for it before with this automated pit stopping officials, the cameras they have going on. NASCAR knows. They know, and they know that if someone's trying to get away with something, or if they've pushed the envelope just a little bit too much, and the popular thing for them to do is the tire carrier would, like you would say, he would run around to the other side of the car and he would slam his hip into that
body panel right before the tire,
and it would look like he's bracing himself to hand that tire off. I mean, these guys are like a ballet. Everything is choreographed,
and it's done on purpose.
Right. And NASCAR catches them.
But NASCAR could have, if they had so desired, and they said, Briscoe's leading the race, and obviously he didn't win it on 3 tires. So, they were penalized enough by screwing up.
So do you not agree with the penalty? Is that what you're saying?
In this case, no, I don't, because it was in the middle of the race. The team was penalized enough. That crew chief, sir, said, "Don't bolt the left rear tire on. We're going to try and run on 3."
Yeah.
If he had, and he was, and the tire changer, well, he told me not to put it on. Obviously, then there's an issue, but that didn't happen.
I think I completely disagree with you. It's written black and white in the rules. If your tire falls off after a pit stop, it is a 4-race suspension for your crew chief, for the jackman, and for the tire changer. It is plain and clear in the rule book.
That is written in the rule book if your tire falls off?
It actually is written in the rule book. It is a part of that tire safety.
I don't have a NASCAR rule book since 2005. I know it wasn't in back then.
Yeah, and that's where it was put in as a rule, as a part of that safety thing. If the tire comes off, it's automatic.
Well, then if that's in the rule book, then so be it. Then it's in the rule book.
That's one of the other places that I turned around too, because I heard that on Dave Moody's show, and I went, "Oh, well, if it says if your tire falls off due to lack of lug nuts, then that's it."
If it actually says that in the rule book, then I'm going to stand corrected, and NASCAR did the right thing.
Well, and that's where everyone was always confused, because the maximum for having loose lug nuts at the end of the race is a 3-race suspension, and everyone said, "Well, why did they give them a 4-race suspension?" Paragraph down,
the safety factor
spells it out. One of the last topics I want to talk about for today is old Danica Patrick. She addressed an issue that we've ran into a couple of times, and with me being in radio and having dealt with celebrities quite a bit, between bands and racetrack and race drivers and musicians and all forms of celebrities.
Well, why don't you ever get us any concert tickets?
I got to get concert tickets. Sarah said to me the other day, "Can we get tickets to Matchbox 20?" And I said, "Well, it's at Stir. I'll see if I got Dirk that can hook me up."
I didn't even get tickets for that one.
My company doesn't have any tickets to that stuff. Anyways, so the whole situation that happened was that Danica Patrick was walking back to her car. Was it after practice or qualifying? It had to have been after qualifying, because they were pushing her car back. And she usually drives her car back after practice. So she's walking behind her car, and some fans hollered her name, and she kind of kept walking, and then they started booing her. And she walks up, and she kind of gives another one of the fans. So the angle I saw, the video I saw, was he was a couple of people down, and she was talking to another person. Says, "You know what? I am here to drive a race car and to tell my crew chief what needs to be done to the car to make it better."
Well, that's what I was going to say. After the qualifying, she would have been debriefing. That totally understandable.
And in that video, she was just walking. She wasn't talking with anybody. She was just walking back. And we've seen her walk through the pits. She's got a bit of giddy up in her steps. She moves quickly because she can get hoarded pretty fast.
Correct.
And so back to this video, and they started booing her, which, whoop-de-doo, they started booing her. They started heckling her. But she didn't take too kindly to it. And she went over and she did use some foul language, but she just basically said, "I'm here to drive a race car and to talk to the crew chief and to try to win these races. I give you guys as much time as I possibly can, but there's times where I have to draw a line, and I have to go and do my job. And I'm sorry if you don't appreciate that, or you think I'm not doing something for you, but that's not in my job description, is to sign every single autograph. I try to do it as much as possible. I try to get to many fans as possible, but I have a job to do." And I completely agree with her. Well, I think there's times that fans take it a little bit too far, that you owe me. No, they don't owe you anything.
No, they don't owe you, but it really wasn't her place to take care of that. That's what her PR person should have done. Just down at Kansas, remember, I backed into a Dale Earnhardt autograph. totally by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to be in the right place, and he's standing there. I got something signed. Well, I tried to get something signed before the race. I specifically went down by his car, waited for him to get out of his truck and walk up where I was able to get a couple of the other drivers' autographs. And his PR guy just looked at me when I stuck my thing out and said, he's not signing anything down here.
Yeah.
And that's who should have said. Dale didn't say a word to me. Dale didn't look at me. He didn't get cross-eyed. Nothing. His PR guy took care of it, like Danica's PR person should have taken care of that. If you're going to interact with the fans, it's got to be a positive experience.
The better situation would have been absolutely yes. I don't have a problem with the way Danica took part. I don't have a problem with it at all. But again, I've been exposed to the side of it that, the celebrities are asked to be kind of on all the time.
Correct.
Smile on their face, happy, interactive. And I've watched celebrities that as soon as they walk behind a door, it gets shut off. And their face just droops. They go back to being they're off guard. They're finally relaxed. And it's kind of, I don't know if I want to say we're celebrities, but whenever I'm walking around I-80 Speedway, I'm always conscious of what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, because I'm a representative of I-80 Speedway. When I'm here for the show or I'm at Kansas, there's times when I don't get to relax, but there's a lot of times that I do get to relax.
Well,
I'm at my house. I'm not near what Danica is, and I can only imagine how...
Are you sure?
I can only imagine how much pressure she's under, to perform. That's obvious. And she is an incredibly popular driver. You go to Kansas Speedway and she's got so many shirts that are floating around there that every single person would love to sit down and autograph something and meet her and talk to her and have that story. And 99% of the time, you're going to get that out of Danica Patrick, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Carl Edwards.
As much as time will allow.
As nice as Carl Edwards was to us that year that we got the interview request, I am sure there was 10 other times that he had to be rude to a person or didn't mean to be rude.
Well, and there was times we tried to get to talk to him and couldn't. Now, we did catch him the one day right as he got done with an interview, and we got our liner with him. We went up inside the hauler and got that done.
Mm-hmm.
But that was 20 or 30 seconds. We weren't there to interview with him.
Brad Keselowski was the same thing. We've told this story 100 times.
And Brad was going to give us 20 minutes, so we weren't prepared for it.
We stopped Brad. Brad recognized you. You said, we just want to do a couple of minutes with you. He says, buddy, I got to go debrief with my crew chief. Give me 20, 25 minutes.
Well, he said it was like an hour.
Okay. So then we came back, and we sat down. We were about 45 minutes later. We sat down at his hauler. We want to make sure we plopped down and reserved our time.
Camped out.
And it was about an hour and 15 minutes after we initially talked to him. He comes out, and you said, hey, Brad, do you still have some time? And he goes, guys, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And his hauler was probably 35, 50 steps.
Right at the end of the row. Yeah, it wasn't very
50 steps from the bathroom. From that time, he was swarmed with people, and he had to, at some point in time, he had to stop and go in the bathroom, do his business, and then come back out where he was then swarmed again because there was nowhere for him to go. People knew Brad Keselowski's in that bathroom. I got a good chance of getting some stuff from him. And there was a horde of people that came back to the hauler afterwards.
And there was parents with kids and everything going on. And
veterans, and there was disabled, and so we were sitting there, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go in front of a kid, and I'm not going to go in front of a veteran, I'm not going to go in front of a disabled. And so he went through his progression of taking care of the people.
And he looked over at us, and he goes, it's going to be a couple minutes. And I just said, hey, I know the drill. You're good.
Right. And he was gracious enough. He took the time. Listen, his time is, their time at the racetrack is down to the minute. You don't even understand. It's so hard to understand how their times are so regimented that Danica probably had to get back to go debrief with the crew chief, and she's getting heckled because she didn't stop and sign not one autograph, not two autographs. It had turned into 100 autographs. And at some point in time, she'd have had to draw the line, and the person after the line would have been mad.
Would have been the one booing instead of all of them.
So there is a no-win situation for these people.
And, she might have been going. She might have had to shoot a commercial. You don't know where they're headed. That time we tried to get Eric Almirola, and that's exactly what he said. He goes, guys, I got a commitment. I can't talk.
Right.
That's all.
It happens, and it's unfortunate. And so I guess the whole point of this conversation is I have absolutely no problem with Danica Patrick approaching those fans. She probably could have handled it a little bit differently.
I said she should have had her PR people handle it, and then Danica wouldn't have been the bad guy.
You know what? How many times have we started off this show, and I've had to redo it 2 or 3 times because I didn't like the way I started it? I'm sure if she'd have had the opportunity to go back and redo it, like we have the ability to redo some things on here, that she'd have said things a little bit differently and worded things a little bit differently, and it probably would have been a better situation. I completely fault those fans for booing her. Don't act like a spoiled brat. Just because she walked by you and didn't sign your autograph, don't sit there and boo her and to belittle her. I mean, she's got other things to do. She was absolutely right. It's not her job to sign every single autograph at the racetrack. That is a benefit that we get as fans, that the drivers actually take the time to do that.
That's true, but like I said, the PR people are there to run that interference for him, and her PR person kind of failed her at that point by not just going and taking care of it.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, we're going to wrap it up for today. We appreciate everybody joining us. By the way, we did a whole 45 minutes that on air on AM 590 you never heard about. We talked about a couple of topics, so make sure to download the Stitcher app. Go over to the Front Stretch channel and download the entire show so that you can get all that extra commentary.
And we are going to try and stay on top of that. We are not going to promise you 45 minutes every week.
Right.
But we are going to try and stay on top of this and bring you some extra stuff that we can't. Just as also, I wanted to get one thing mentioned as we're wrapping up, that the car that I drove in the Gambler 500 here in Nebraska is being trailered here in another week and is going to go out and run the Gambler 500 in Oregon. And it was also, in case anybody happened to be in the Beatrice area last week, Joel took it after he washed it up and he did a few repairs on it after I drove it, and he went and track packed with it at Beatrice Speedway last week. So if anybody sees it, and maybe he's going to do it again this week, but
I see they already set the date for next year's Gambler 500.
Yeah, it's it was like June 16th or 18th or something like that.
I nailed it. 16th and 17th, I believe.
In June of 18.
Correct.
There we go.
Correct.
And because, I saw a few people that already liked the event. People, if you are going to do it, when we get closer to the event next year or over the winter when we slow down a little bit, we'll do some more show on that, and I will tell you some of the secrets and things that I learned in my 1 year of experience, because I'm right now in the process of putting together with a friend and his son to go over and run the Gambler that's in Iowa in the middle of August. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there was a lot of learning in my first one. Like I said, I was happy with a 15th out of 54 place finish. I was more than happy with that, never even done it before. If I go out it again and I finish out of the top 3, I will be very disappointed in myself. I'm that kind of a perfectionist, and
perfectionist?
Yeah.
You're such a perfectionist, just spelled
I couldn't even talk.
Over that word. Normally I don't point that out, but that was just funny.
Yeah, well.
I'm not one to point out people having trouble with words.
It's this 2-hour show that we've done today that's got me going.
We'll do it all again next weekend. Get over to Quaker Steak and Lube for the Michigan race starting at 2 o'clock.
Get in that Crewman for a Day contest. Get in there today. It is free. It's a blast. If you win, you'll enjoy it, and if you're in the top 5, you'll enjoy your prizes also.
Amen. We'll be back next weekend to do it all over again. This has been the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The official watering hole of the Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.